Well, welcome again to the next part of our lecture on the capital accumulation. Well, we were talking on the Rosa Luxemburg's the model and the fact that she thought that there's a long-term realization problem in the capitalist economic system, and that's the most significant problem of the capitalist economic system. Well, basically, to what extent we can say it is right? In my opinion, not that much, because let's assume this 600 extra value is distributed by 200 by 200 between the variable and capital and the surplus value, and 200 goes to extra, the constant capital, which means it is spent for buying the inputs. What does this mean? Just looking to the table, we see that workers get 20% more value, and the capitalists get 20% more value. Assuming capitalists spend everything extra they got for consumption, the investments, the amount of investments per year increase by 20%, and the workers spend their money on consumption, so the variable capital also increased 20%. So can investments and consumption increase at the same time 20%? Yes, in the end, actually, that extra 20% consumption might make up for the 20% additional products that might be produced as a result of investments. So this is not that, in my opinion, that much of a deal breaker. I mean, this should not necessarily create the big problem in the capitalist system. In the short run, of course, those investments might find difficulty in finding their customers, and especially when it is a company-to-company war, this might end up in a price war, and this might bankrupt a lot of companies. It happened in the United States, for example, between the train companies. They all had actually created a lot of train railroad lines in all over the United States, and the price of the tickets have fallen to very, very little quantities, because there was a price war also between them. But in the end, many railroad companies, they've gone bankrupt. That was starting point of one of the Great Depressions of the capitalist system. That's in the late 19th century, if I'm not mistaken, 1870s. So, but for Rosa Luxemburg, as she describes this as one of the major problems of the capitalist system, she argues there is a remedy for this in the capitalist system, and that remedy is expansion. Expansion is something that is basically, according to Rosa Luxemburg, softening the realization problem, long-run realization problem. And that's interesting, because even if there is no long realization problem, the short-run realization problem itself might be softened by the expansion. And maybe all these tensions created by this increase in that lead to increasing concentration of capital and putting barriers to the rest of the people who want to be capitalists. Those tensions might also be eased by the expansion, maybe. So let's see Rosa Luxemburg's argument in that sense. Rosa Luxemburg thinks, well, capitalist system can expand in different ways. One is geographic expansion. It can basically go to other countries and basically invade their economies, sectors of their economies. Like British textile producers had kind of invaded the Indian markets, where basically they had all their own textiles, which were actually very traditional and famous up to that point. That's one possibility. Another possibility is invading different regions of the country. For example, in the western United States, traditionally there were these small shops, small carpenters, small bakers stand, but carpenters basically won't stand. Iron smiths, for example. because the transportation between the American West and the rest of the country was very limited. So if you have an iron good, basically you cannot buy something new. You need to basically repair it as often as possible. So that's why having an ironsmith is important. Having a tailor is important, who makes your, who at least repairs your clothing. But when railroad came, which decreased the transportation to a few days, which was very little for the time being, compared with the alternative, which was months, 2 months or so, I believe. Then the basic market, some markets of the West were invaded by the big, large Eastern companies. The East is the developed part of the United States. Was at that time. Now in the West Coast you have also some developed states like California, Oregon, basically. But at that time the East was a more developed part. Well, and you can also have sectors that are invaded, sectors that are usually previously are not part of the capitalist economic system. Like, for example, previously people were cooking. Now you have at least semi-processed food. You can basically just need to put the microwave oven and basically in a few seconds it's cooked. Well, previously, for example, they say their fathers were making the tree houses. Now there are manufactured tree houses, for example. Well, there are different sectors which were basically not part of the market, but now those sectors might be taken over by the market-based companies, profit maximizing companies, and those companies, they need inputs from all other companies. So they that invasion of that sector actually might help to all economic system, not only the companies that are operating in those sectors, these new sectors, basically. So how does it happen? Well, basically, I said, for example, USA is aiming to invade Turkish market. Let's say one of the Turkish market, which is Turkish car market. Even today, that might be possible. Even though Turkey is also has capitalists basically operating in the car market. Let's say all these capitalists are essentially the national capitalists. They are Turkish. Well, US car companies may enter into Turkey, and with their price advantage, they might also ask for political favors, which might help them and harm the Turkish national manufacturers. It happens sometimes the state might side with the US manufacturers due to pressure from the US government, of course. And let's say the Turkish people in Turkey start to buy US cars instead of Turkish cars. So the realization program of the US cars is sold, and there is a bonus there. Turkish cars are not sold, which means the Turkish workers working in those car companies will soon be unemployed. Why? Because basically the Turkish cars are not sold, so Turkish companies will go bankrupt. As a result, the US companies might now come to Turkey, build some factories, and basically also use this new, fresh labor force that is available to them. So we has expanded, which is a big gift for the United States. So this is all tensions that are on C over V, on exploitation rate, they can be easy a little bit, especially in the United States, as a result. The problem is, this is a one-time solution. Next time, Turkish car market is already dominated by the US companies. So next time, in order to solve realization problem or ease the exploitation rate and other C over V or other troublemaking trends of the capitalist system, you need to find another market, a new market, something else. So, and Note that this expansion cannot go anywhere without humans or intelligence species who can basically be part of your economic system with their mind, with their consciousness, basically. So that means you cannot colonize Moon or go to Antarctica. You need to go. You can only expand to the places where, as far as we know, human exists. Human are only intelligence life forms we know. So basically, the expansion has its limits. Its full limits we don't know. To what extent we can go and we can build new sectors. To what extent, which activities might be dominated by the market. Well, can market sleep for us? I don't know. Market can cook for us. Market can do a lot of things for us. Do childcare for us. Which activities can be taken over by the market? Basically, I don't know. I don't know. However, basically, in the end, whatever it is, we might think, well, there are some limits. There are some limits. In the extreme sense, all activities might be taken over by the market side. I don't know. And those limits are actually the limits of the capitalist system, according to Rosa Luxemburg. If the market is not able to expand, then basically it won't be able to. It won't be able to solve its problems. Or we might say that expansion, even if it doesn't completely, maybe it's not needed completely, even if realization problem in the long run can be solvable within capitalist system, that expansion might still be easing the short run realization problem also and helping the capitalist system. So, and that expansion might also help a different type of problem we will talk about in next time. Which means that expansion might actually still be helpful. So reaching the limits of that expansion might therefore take from the capitalist system one important tool of stabilization the system has in its hands. So whether capitalist system reach that limit, well, geographic limits are reached. Maybe we have some countries where still there are many sectors to be invaded. For individual companies, maybe local companies and sectors might be still invaded. That's kind of a war, but that's kind of a war between many equal large corporations in many sense. Also, United States, European corporations, Chinese corporations are rising now. There are corporations in the East Asia. So one of them defeating all of them would be an enormous ready for those countries' corporations. But is it possible? Or now can we talk about on a global capital that is now dominating and that is actually interaction with each other? That's the question. So that's actually one interesting thing Rosa Luxemburg brings to us, this expansion and the role of this expansion. That discussion is brought by Rosa Luxemburg. Well, we are getting close to the 15 minutes. So next time I want to talk a little bit about on the monopolization trend more and the discussions it has created within the Marxian school. And it won't probably take that long. And that will be the end of this lecture, basically. See you then.